Anyways, yeah.
You know, leave the meeting.
No, it's not on. But I'm already getting that with my process through YouTube.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's not even necessary. But man,
Meeting highlights. Do you have any specific I feel like I started the topics last week, so I won't monopolize them. If you have anything you specifically want to bring up first.
no, it's fine. I have some stuff that has, gotten written down over the last few days and got wrote down last week that we didn't talk about. I kind of like the idea of like, I don't want to say like we always have to mutually decide, but I'm indifferent coming off of the last conversations that I've had this morning and like everything going on. So let me read a few things that I have written down
Okay.
and pull out the one that sounds interesting to talk about.
Okay.
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 So you may have heard of him, you may not have heard of him. There's a guy named Brian Johnson who sold Venmo for $800 million. And he's now running basically a life experiment on himself to increase the amount of science we have towards anti aging.
Oh wow.
Have you heard of him?
I have not heard of any of that.
He's 46. It's like he looks 46, but he doesn't look 46. It's the weirdest thing.
Hmm.
Um, I don't want to like show a picture or anything yet to like halt your. So, anyways, but he was on a podcast and he said something to this guy named Dr. Mike, who has a podcast, and he said something about "Don't die" is the most played game in the world. And he
Hmm.
broke it down a little bit. Like we're all doing these things that are like "Don't die," like pay attention when you're driving, buckle up, don't like smoke and drink all day every day. Like in
Hmm.
a way, we're all playing the game of don't die. So that was kind of like an interesting thought experiment to kind of talk through. There's a newer topic. I don't know how new it is, but I've heard it on some podcasts called neuroeconomics. I'm not sure if that's come up in your studies at
Mm-mm.
all. Um, and then this was an interesting one I wrote down that I had this like revelation in the sauna. I was curious your thoughts on it. When I'm at the Y and I'm in the sauna, for example, or even on a Zoom meeting, I feel a different level of confidence in conversation than I do in person or in person with my glasses on. I had this like weird distinction where I was like, I don't have my glasses on, so I really can't see these people that I'm talking to in the sauna or in the pool area, their facial expressions or like how they're reacting to what I'm saying. I'm just speaking confidently the way I feel and
Hmm.
hoping that I'm not offending anyone because half the time I can't even see the person I'm
Yeah.
talking to. And then I feel bad because people might like, oh, we had a conversation the other day and then he just walked right by me. It's like, no, I just can't see.
Yeah.
Um, and then the other one was something just from the other day where someone was kind of talking about like how to take notes, how to succeed in college, which was a whole cool breakdown of a few videos that I watched. But the takeaway note that I wrote down was that college is a bet on yourself. And I think that there's so much like slander towards college right now
Hmm.
that that was a really great way to put it. I thought like, yes, you're betting on this piece of paper. Like you need to get this piece of paper to get these jobs, and maybe you don't learn as much depending on your degree as you would learn in the field, but you still need to make that bet on yourself that you're going to finish college and actually
Yeah.
get a job to pay off that debt and stuff. So those are a few different topic options.
Yeah. I like all of them. Thank you for bringing them forward.
Yeah.
I would be interested in delving first into what you said about wearing glasses. I think
Mm.
that's just very fascinating.
Yeah. 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 I thought maybe.
And also the idea of I'm less interested in like the guy from Venmo about like what he's doing and more interested about like the concept he purported of like playing the game of don't die. I think that'd be an interesting topic.
Yeah.
So, um, you want to start with the glasses and
Yeah.
roll from there?
Yeah. I'm down for all.
Okay, so when you say you feel more confident, is that the word you used? You feel more like yourself.
Less self conscious, more confident.
Okay, so obviously the thing that changes is your visual acuity. So how do you personally like see that translating to being able to put yourself forward more confidently?
It made me think about how much I don't want to immediately be like, "Oh my god, I'm so empathetic that like when I'm talking, I see people's facial expressions and it makes me so like conscious of how they're feeling." But to some extent, that is it. But also just makes me realize how much I pay attention to everyone around me as I'm speaking or the person
Mhm.
I'm speaking to. And, like there's multiple examples. Like, for example, if someone's just like ranting and ranting and ranting on at me because I can see so well, I feel like an obligation because of like who I am and how I was brought up to like give them my attention and like look at them as they're talking. But then in a way, if I'm like annoyed by how long they're talking, I feel like drained by that. So I
Mhm.
wish that I could like not have to see them. um, but when I don't have glasses on, I feel like it's okay to like not look directly at them because it's like I can't see you anyways. Or even if I am looking at them, I'm not actually seeing their face, so therefore I'm able to like withstand it longer. If that makes sense, we could dive into it longer.
So
But
you
another,
almost feel like less obligated in your response or in your um like pretty much having to stay there and take it.
in a way, yeah, I feel like it helps. It adds like a degree of separation in my interactions when I'm there, and because I like fully have committed to it now, not intentionally, but it's kind of grown into this thing where it's like I when I have a pool, sauna, steam room day, I just take my glasses off, I put them in my bag, and then it might be an hour to 90 minutes, just like it was this morning. I, for some reason, woke up at like 4 a.m. and went to the Y and was there from like 5 to 6:30. A full blown period of time where like I couldn't see. Like I could tell who Mike is and I could tell kind of who some people are, but it was a like a barrier between my typical interaction there.
And what does that barrier like allow for personally? What does it give you that you don't have when you have the glasses on?
Mm, I guess like back to my original point, like I feel like I can just speak more confidently, not feel so self-conscious about like how I'm saying something. Not that I'm saying anything that ever hurts anyone's feelings, but it might like I'm so aware of if someone's paying attention. Do they seem like they're interested in the conversation? Are they vibing with what I'm saying? When I can't see how someone's reacting, I'm more or less just like, hey, I just got to say what I got to say. I can't tell the difference either way unless someone were to physically speak up and be like, I don't like what you just said, which is what I feel like I want to operate under the condition of more. Like I want to operate under the condition where like, hey, I'm going to be me. If someone's annoyed, it's on them to tell me within reason.
Yeah. Have you ever do you remember like well, I don't know if you've had maybe this exact circumstance, but I know you can like relate to it. Um I remember there's been times where I want to jaywalk on an unbusy, say downtown Monaca, right? I just want to cross Pennsylvania Avenue and I don't want to like go up to the crosswalk, which who even knows if Monaca has like painted crosswalks anymore. Um, but then like occasionally I would go to do that and I would glance and there might be like a cop car there or a police officer walking down the road. And so all of a sudden I step off the road to do it and I'm like, oh nope, and correct myself. Now, jaywalking is literally the least prioritization of any police ever, which means you can make an ethical argument that if they prosecute that, they're wasting money ethically.
Yeah.
And I know that consciously. Now, when I was younger, I didn't know that or didn't think about things like that.
Right.
But there's something about that police officer being there who probably does not care at all unless I'm like literally running in front of traffic and like
Yeah.
making a dangerous situation. But he doesn't care if I cross here or the crosswalk, more than likely, because who in the right mind would actually care that much? Like,
Yeah.
no cop wants extra paperwork just to have extra paperwork.
Yeah.
And that's like the metaphor I'm thinking through when I hear what you're talking about, where like your glasses in a way are the police officer, where now you're like, oh no, I have to be extra cautious. I have to go to the crosswalk. I have to do the thing that is expected of me. But I don't know what's expected of me. Every other person, like I have to watch that person intently to know what's expected of me so I can adjust based on their reactions. And so it's like you're encountering a new police officer who pretty much um enforces crimes according to their own subjective experience every time, and you're like trying to understand how to navigate every single, and to me, like, how would that not be exhausting?
Yeah. I'm starting to feel like maybe it's like, obviously it is me, but I'm trying to put my finger on like I feel like it goes deeper than just having like a barrier of not being able to see facial expressions. It's like, what am I getting out of seeing the facial expressions? What am I getting out of being able to see people versus not being able to see people? I still like valued the response, but maybe that's what it is. Like, I just need to take what they say or how they react as it is and not kind of towards like a topic we talked about before and like not be so like hell bent on expecting what they're going to say. Just accept what they say, accept how they react. And again, if I'm offending anyone, it's definitely not intentional. I hope they'll let me know. Not that that would be the case, but more or less just go into interactions way more open-minded and almost like expect that maybe they're going to say something that I am annoyed by, but I just
Mhm.
have to appreciate that that's just a human responding with the interactions and knowledge that they've had.
Sure, and I would say that everyone experiences that, right?
Yeah.
That worry of offending someone and that annoyance from other people's habits, right? Like in every single day things. Um, and when you rigidly adhere to that as if it's like a rule set, it becomes meticulous and exhausting to have even the most mundane, meaningless interactions. So you would probably want to avoid those, which we've talked about.
Hmm.
Um, would you be willing to do like a quick question thing to try to? Yeah, it's just a fun. It's just I think it's fun. I don't know if you'll think it's fun,
Yeah.
but
No, let's do it.
okay. So I've heard you a couple times say the idea of like if I offend someone, would you say generally that's what you're worried about?
I feel like that's just an example, but it's not a genuine concern because I pretty much operate specifically like that. My goal is not to offend anyone.
That is what you operate on, or is that that's not what you
Yeah,
operate
no, like I operate whether consciously or subconsciously, like I'm aware that like my goal is to not ever offend anyone intentionally.
on? Okay. So I think the word intentionally there is really meaningful, and also that's kind of like a separate part. But I just wanted to highlight that.
Yeah.
If let's say hypothetically you're going through, you have your glasses on, and you encounter a conversation with someone that you know, but like not maybe on the extent that you and I know each other, um, and you end up offending them. What's the worst case scenario as a result?
Ideally, they're able to address why it's offensive. I like to think myself as open minded, so I'd like to hear them out on why it was offensive. And, if it really deems a conversation, talk through it so that we can kind of like move past it.
Okay. So you said ideally, which would be like a best case scenario, right? What about worst case scenario?
I mean, absolute worst case scenario, I say something so against their beliefs or something that they can't forgive me for having even said it, even if I didn't wholeheartedly mean it. And that person is now either no longer a friend, an acquaintance, someone that I could even like feel comfortable sitting in the sauna at the same time with.
Okay. So you would find just discomfort in their presence because you know that you've offended them, and it's to an extent where they're not willing to forgive you or even like address it.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's say that happens. What's the worst thing that happens as a result of that? Now you've offended this person. when you see them, you feel that uncomfortable feeling.
Mhm.
You start thinking about the way you offended them and that they haven't forgiven you or they won't even talk to you about it. What's the result of that? Worst case scenario.
The, I guess, somewhat limited social time that I get each day, which is my sauna steam room time at the Y, is further inhibited from being like a really enjoyable, relaxing time because I tend to see a lot of the same people. And if one of those people now became someone that like made me uncomfortable for even being there at the same time as them, that would stink.
Yeah, that would really kind of put a damper on the one social outlet you look forward to every day.
Yeah.
Okay. And if that happens, where now the main social outlet you have day to day is inhibited because of this person, or as a result of the interaction between this person and you, what does that mean? Like what happens as a result of that?
Yeah. Um, I would either be forced to adjust the time that I went, or I mean, ideally, it would have never even gotten this far because I would have liked to have had a conversation and sorted things through with this person for the record. But
Yeah.
if that
Well, we're
for
talking
some
worst case
reason, yeah,
scenarios.
didn't
Yeah.
happen, I would either want to like change the time I went, find a new social outlet, find a way to adapt with the ability or the inability to like that hurt. Like it's so hard for me not to be so conscious. Like if there is someone in the sauna, not because I've ever had an interaction with them that was bad, just have seen the way they behave and have kind of grown like a little bit of like a, ugh, this guy's kind of an a-hole.
Hmm.
And I'm just like, can't get my mind off of that when they're in there. Cause I just,
And and you're worried that if you were to offend someone, in this case presented in the worst case scenarios which we outlined, that you would then become the person who is groaned about.
no, not worried about that necessarily. Cause I feel
Okay.
like my interactions with most people are like wholesome, no issue,
Mhm.
that kind of thing. It's really diving back into like how being around that person would make me feel.
Okay. And so it's just that discomfort that you're really wanting to like not be there.
Yeah, like avoid, don't really want to have any kind of confrontation. I don't want there to be any kind of unnecessary like beef or whatever you want to call it. Like I just
Sure.
want like wholesome conversations. Like even just this morning, I won't go into too much detail. Like I don't know, someone was talking about like sushi and like how like it's just so weird that you would eat raw fish. And I kind of like spoke up and I was like, uh, most of the world actually eats fish raw. Like you know how big like Asia is? They eat like raw sushi all the time. Like we're the ones that are weird and like trying to like deep fry it. And it was almost like met with a little bit of resistance. And it was like, yeah, like, and then like they kind of said, like, oh yeah, like we're the weird ones because we cook our food. It was like obviously very like lighthearted and a
Yeah.
joke, but it kind of made me think, like, okay, like I'm not the uneducated one here. Like you have no clue apparently that like raw fish is a borderline delicacy in like most of the world.
Hmm.
Like, yeah, and that's all it was. But even that small like level of like, I guess not a disagreement, but just the way it was received was almost like met with like a heightened emotional response to some degree. Not a lot, but just enough to kind of make me be like, all right, well, like, I don't know, read a book or something, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, I think that makes sense. And it's really just about, I think, at the end of the day, it really a lot of times comes down to homeostasis, where we all just like our balance, whether it's good for us or not, like we crave comfort, and comfort comes with like experiential balance. And so even though, for instance, you had a very reasonable point in that discussion, the person who said that and therefore received your response probably felt like a little taken off because he wasn't expecting that. Now, in order to like create homeostasis, you'd imagine that he would have to rectify that some way in his mind. And how you do that? Well, you double down. It's like, oh yeah, we're the weird one. We're not weird. We cook our food, and he's justifying his point now, right?
Mhm.
Meanwhile, you can also justify your point. So you're both like doubling down in a way of just creating cognitive homeostasis of like matching your point with your thoughts, and trying to justify that socially so that homeostasis can account that like, hey, I'm not being an asshole. I'm I'm merely bringing up points that have justification and rationale.
Right.
And you're both doing that equally from your sides, which creates conflict. If it's approached with the way that creates conflict. Uh, and so I find myself navigating that all the time because I mean,
Yeah.
that I just like love chaos in
Yeah.
social settings. So I literally create issues just to see how people respond to them.
This is
Um,
recorded, kid. No.
yeah. And I've just, as I've gotten older, like really found that it's not fruitful, right? Like it's
Yeah.
fun sometimes, but it doesn't actually lead to like the meaningful experiences with people I enjoy. And therefore I've had to like give that up like almost completely, which is
Yeah.
in a way I lament because it is fun, but most people don't receive it in like a jovial way. Um, Most people aren't entertained by that like I am.
Yeah,
So
that's
in a
fair.
situation like that, I would probably want to make my point because I think it's like fair, but also bring it in a way where I'm like not where I'm cautious of him trying to do the same thing. And so something that sounds close to, yeah, I mean, I personally like I dabble in sushi. I don't love it, but I think it's just so fascinating how like our side of the world is obsessed with like cooking meat, and then you go on the other side of the world and it's like a delicacy to eat it raw. I was like, that's just like
Yeah.
so
Steak
interesting, like that our
tartare and
cultures. Yeah.
yeah.
And so it's like I'm pointing out that hey, you're not completely right, but also I'm hearing what you're saying and you're not completely wrong.
I think most people just regurgitate things they've heard and just
Yeah.
like to say things and don't expect to be challenged. And I think like not that I'm a subject matter on anything, but I feel like I consume a lot of content that most people, especially in the Beaver County YMCA sauna, most people don't hear these things. So it's kind of almost like my goal isn't to go in and be this like educator every time something slightly wrong gets said, but then I have a hard time like hearing it and not being like, "Oh, you an idiot." Like not I don't not really mean it, but it's more or less just like a quick thought that I catch myself having where I'm just like, "Oh, they just don't know." Cuz probably believe that at one point too, but
Mhm.
that's what everyone has said. And I've just consumed so much content at this point that I know that to be this way or whatever the case may be. So yeah, I think it's really just a internal monologue battle with myself to realize that like, hey, this isn't a bad person. Not that I think that it is. Just accepting, more accepting
Like someone who's more open-minded.
me.
No, you like that's what you're kind of it's I'm asking for like clarification, I guess. When you encounter someone like that and you're having that internal battle, is it like you're seeing that person as not very open-minded?
No, more or less. Well, this person specifically, I think is probably pretty set in their ways. Specifically because I know them a lot better than I know
Yeah,
the
sure.
average Joe Schmo that's
So what
just
kind of is
running
that
into
like
the.
internal driving force that like causes that internal battle? Is it like it does not sound to me like it's just I want to prove them wrong.
No,
So like what makes you want to even respond right there?
this person specifically is like, probably like our dad's age,
Hmm.
you know, very outspoken, loud, like not, wouldn't be afraid to speak their mind about anything. And probably one of those people that I would classify to some extent that, like, hey, like, you're not going to win. You're oftentimes not even going to finish a complete thought without getting cut off.
Hmm.
So it's already an uphill battle, in my opinion. It's not me and you having a disagreement, but we're going to have like a lot of dialogue around it and like really deeply understand where each of us is coming from with our opinion.
So I mean that makes sense to me because obviously we all encounter people like that.
Yeah.
But I guess what I'm curious about is like it's an uphill battle, but like why do you even want to start that battle? Like why do you even respond? Like what was the internal drive that says I should point this out about like how a lot of other countries
Oh yeah, I see what
do
you're
eat raw
saying.
fish. Like why even
There
start the
was
battle?
there was four of us in the conversation. I was already very much so a part of the talking.
Mm.
It wasn't like I piped up from the
Yeah.
corner and all of a sudden it's like, actually,
Actually,
excuse me.
excuse me, sir.
Yeah,
Sir?
that I guess that's the main driver was just the straight up fact that I was already kind of part of the conversation. Somebody that we all knew, or at least a few people in there knew, got brought up and talked about how they ate sushi and got sick. And I said, like, oh, well, oh yeah, that's what I said. I was like, well, I mean, yes, there's always a possibility if you eat raw meat, you could get some kind of like a little bit of a food poisoning or stomach bug or something. But just because you ate something one time out of the 500 times that you ate it doesn't mean you're not going to eat it again. Like, how many times have we all probably had like fast food, didn't like the way we felt, but then
Mhm,
sure enough, we're in the line again soon? That was the point I made. And that's when
mhm,
the raw fish comment got made. And that's when I said, like, well, like, honestly, most of the world does eat raw fish. Like,
mhm.
we're the ones that go and add like, fried and sauces to it and stuff. So
Yeah, okay, that makes more sense.
yeah,
I personally feel this a lot with I've always explained as myself having a high, I call it a call to action, even from
CTA,
like what's that?
a CTA,
A CTA. I like it.
call to
Um,
action. Sales lingo.
yeah, I like
The
it.
end. Open to a call. That's a CTA.
Nice, nice. Yeah, so I have a very internal CTA, like inherently, particularly around like justice, what I perceive as injustice. And a situation like that, very well to me, can seem like injustice when I see like a person monopolizing a conversation, asserting their will. I know it to be like kind of an egregious and probably an ignorant comment that's really coming from their belief and they're purporting it as a fact. And I'm just like, well, someone's got to say something. Like, I can't just let you get away with this. And I kind of like have had that my whole life, which is served me in good and bad ways. Um, and again, as I've gotten older and I would say wiser with that, I have learned when it's worth it quite a bit more than just like engaging all the time because it's exhausting. But it really does strike me as like why I'm reminded of that for myself because I can put myself in your shoes and knowing myself, I know that's what would be driving me is like I don't care to prove him wrong or anything. I just like want it to be heard that that is not like the factual thing. And I would usually not even care about saying it in a way that like is going to help him change his mind. I just like want to prove him wrong,
Yeah, that's
which is
fair.
not helpful. And that's why I've tried to change like the way I operate things sometimes. But so that's what I'm like curious about if you can name like what it is for you. Like I don't want to assume that your experience is the same as what I would do in that situation, and more importantly, like the reason behind it. So like the reason behind it for me, I imagine is a little bit different than the reason behind it for you, and that's what I'm just curious of if you have like awareness of that.
To be honest with you, most of the time I don't even engage in anything that I would even consider like controversial or being debated. Most of the time, nothing like that's even being discussed. Today, it was a super random example. I think a week or two ago when we talked, I shared the example of like how I was talking about like the whole like Gen Z and upbringing thing. And the guy's response was something like, yeah, you got to learn how to reason. And I was just like, what? Those are honestly rare interactions. Most of the time, I just kind of keep to myself, say hi and bye, people ask like, "Oh, how long do you stay in here for?" Like very basic conversation. Those are most of the conversations that I just
Mhm.
stay out of. I sit for my 15, 20 minutes and move on.
See, that's interesting to me because in the past we've talked to like ad nauseum about both of us desiring like more depth of conversation. than just like, hey, how long are you in here for? How's the weather? What's the Beaver basketball team doing? You know? Um, and so now it sounds like when you get opportunities like that, you don't actually like engage with it publicly that much.
Well, wait, I don't engage with what?
Like those depth conversations.
They don't happen much, is what I'm saying. Most of the
Okay.
conversations are the whole, how long do you stay in here for?
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah. Okay.
like
I agree with
basic
you.
talk. Typically, very rarely, I don't want engage in anything that's mundane like that, I guess you could say.
Hmm.
It's rare to go in there. And it happened the other day. So I will give an example where I did engage with a guy. I was in there alone. He came rolling in, and I was just in that mood. I just said, like,
Literally rolls in the door.
huh?
I said literally rolls in the
Yeah,
door.
literally rolls in the door
Somersaulting.
onto the wet sauna floor. Um, yeah, and he was just sitting there, older guy, like I'm assuming like at least 50. And I don't know. I was just like, hey, what do you do for a living or something like that? After we kind of just said, like, what's up? And then I was like, so what do you do for a living or whatever? And then, he didn't really ever give me any details into what he did, but he said that he moved back from LA. And he asked me what I did, and he asked me some questions about sales, and then he asked, like, do I think AI could ever replace sales? So, like, now we're having a good
Hmm.
conversation, and this is interesting too. Like, on this thought, more people rolled in, and like, I don't know, it kind of felt weird to continue that conversation where like no one else was talking. It was just me and him. There's now three other people in between us, and I just kind of let the conversation die out and didn't ask any more questions because to some degree I was like self-conscious of like not really being able to see. Um, and I also, don't know if these other people want to hear us banter back and forth. Like I'm so aware of that rather than me actually wanting to engage with more conversation with this guy.
Okay. Well, that's interesting because that sounds like the same limitation that having glasses puts
Hmm.
you on that you like just said before. So,
Yeah, I
like,
know.
is it the glasses or is it not the glasses?
I caught myself as soon as I said that. So maybe it
Yeah.
isn't the glasses. Maybe I
Well,
was
maybe
maybe I
there's
was
something
giving
to that,
too
right?
much weight to it.
Yeah, maybe that's true. Like, I wouldn't just throw it out completely. For instance, I go in public and in crowds, I'm like pretty uncomfortable. Just generally, I manage it. But if we're like Bria and I went to this festival, like it's called the Zayla Festival here, and I knew there was like crowded streets, and I just like kind of have a head on my swivel. It's past training. It's just like what I do. I have Ruby on my left. I know she's getting overwhelmed with crowds. She does well, but like I know, like if you're this tall and everyone else is this tall and you're surrounded, like she's gonna be stressed out.
Yeah, big time.
And then on top of that, Bria, like the way Bria operates in crowds, just like increases my anxiety because she's like just ditzy, like a little bit
Like
ditzy.
roaming and yeah.
Yeah, she's just like, oh, I'm like, can you walk? Like, you're almost hitting into people. Like, just pay attention a little bit. So I'm like literally guiding her, guiding Ruby, and then like also just everyone by the situation. And I know most of that is just internal for me. Like at the end of the day, Ruby's gonna fare fine. Bria has walked through crowds
Right.
far longer before I knew her. Like she'll be fine. And at the end of the day, like I don't feel unsafe. I just feel like a little overwhelmed and like cautious. But that amplifies if I pay attention to it. Now, one thing that I do that really helps for some reason is I put on my dark sunglasses. And just knowing that like other people can't see where my eyes are at
Mm.
gives me so much comfort. Like allows me to manage the situation more. And I've never like really expressed that. Like I haven't told Bria that, I haven't told anyone. Um, because it's not like abnormal to wear glasses in public, but it's like almost a similar effect that you have when you're taking off glasses. And so there's something to it
Yeah. Before I lose
with
this
the
thought,
eyes.
yeah, no, I agree. And I think what I feel like I even mentioned about like being on a Zoom call too, being a barrier that helps
Hmm.
me. I also know how much more fluent I am when I speak and confident, especially if I'm on like a sales call when we're not on video. If
Hmm.
I were to just call someone and have like an assigned call, that's gonna go a lot better than it is if I'm seeing them on here. And I noticed this too because on one of the, interviews that I did with Champify, I somehow I didn't even do it intentionally, but one way or the other, setting up my screens, when I did my screen share, I couldn't see them. All I could see was my slide deck, and I knew that they could see me and hear me. And then I just went off for like probably like a 45-minute call. And at no point did I see them until the end.
Mhm.
And I crushed it. I didn't get the job, but like they were little to no feedback. So something to that. Why is it for you that with the dark shades and knowing that they can't see your eyes, and why is it for me on a sales call or any kind of conversation if they can't see me, I feel a lot more confident or something?
Yeah, I think, like, my thought is just from, like, my worldview is that at the end of the day, like, it all comes to what makes us feel safe.
Mhm.
So in some way, I would say it relates to safety probably for each one of us, but, like, in our own unique way, which we would just, like, have to self-discover a little bit. Um, but I think that's very interesting, and that's not, like, uncommon, right? It's
No.
more common that, like, people on video calls feel more confident in your phone call. Matter of fact, for me, I feel better when I can see people's faces. So I'm like almost the opposite of you. Like if I'm on the
Yeah.
phone call versus like video call or in person, I know it takes more effort to do it this way, but like I'd rather schedule an in-person thing than like do it on the phone, or I'd rather schedule in person than do a video call. I'd rather do a video call than do a phone call. And I think for me, it's part of the experience, but also in a way, and it almost, I think ours can relate in this way, where it comes to like reading people. But to me, it I consider myself like a good read of people, and I think you are as well. I think inherently in both of our fields, like you kind of have to be.
Yeah.
Um, but for me, like the visual acuity is what I'm less confident with. Like I can hear tones really well, and so like I trust that, like being able to like delineate between that. But reading people's faces, like I have to really focus on that to like do as well. Like I'm good at it, and I would say like I'm better than the average person just because of my like field. Um, but I would say if I had to like rate my sensory input, I would say my auditory, like my hearing, is slightly better than like my visual, and so I actually default to visual awareness first, which means I have to focus on, or I'm sorry, auditory awareness first, and then I have to focus on visual awareness as like a secondary effort. And I think people can test this because if something happens over there, I'm not going to say if it's noise or whatever. Like, do you listen first? Like, are you like, or do you go like this first? And I think that
Mm.
tells you what your primary sense is.
Mm.
And I think when you know that, it starts to like make sense of how your body processes like safety things. And I think then this could make sense to you as you like start to unfold that.
Yeah. I don't think this conversation ends here. I think that like maybe we both, maybe me more than you or none, I don't know, but like maybe we dove into this a little bit more than we have like with anyone else or with ourselves.
Hmm.
Let's see how more time goes.
Yeah, just pay
Couple
attention to it.
and be more, yeah, intentional about like acknowledging it. Not changing it yet, just acknowledging how it made me feel, what went through my head, and we'll dive into it again or something.
Yeah, and also like, what is the first thing you notice? Like when someone walks up to you, what's the first thing you notice? You notice like, and it's going to be really hard because it all happens so quickly. But if you can slow it down, and did I register their tone of voice first, or did I register their like facial expression first? You know what I mean? Or like their body language first. Like for me, I'm going to first, I think, and I'm going to pay more attention to this going forward. Um, but I think I would hear someone's tone of voice, and then I would look at their face and be like, "Oh, that matches." But if someone was like, "Hey, nice to see you," and they were looking at me like this,
Yeah.
I'd be like I would be cautious. I'd be
Right.
extremely cautious because the thing I heard does not match the thing I'm now seeing secondary.
Yeah, for sure.
Whereas some people might see your face first, and then you like and like change to angry, and it's like, "Whoa, I wasn't expecting that," or be like, "Hey, nice to see you," and like you saw my face first, so you were already relaxed.
Yeah.
So
That
maybe for you, like a hypothesis is that taking the glasses off allows you to only focus on the oratory, meaning that maybe that is the thing you're more comfortable with.
yeah,
Similarly to me.
that's a great takeaway right there. Separating it into the auditory or visual sense of like how can I respond? How confident can I be? It was even a great example, and we can move on or whatever if you want after this. If not, it's fine.
Sure.
Um, the guy I just interviewed with at this company called Tracker, um, he real high energy, like made it very comfortable to be on the call with him. I know I would have had a good conversation typically, no matter what. I realize everyone's different, but um, yeah, just real high energy made it very comfortable for me to just speak freely without feeling like this is too formal. And that was a great example of like I could hear in the tone of his voice and see in his expressions as a whole
Mhm.
that it was a we're just having a chat like me and you. If anything, it was like higher energy because he was so like, "Yeah, what up?" Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's
But
funny.
yeah, I think that yeah, we got some good takeaways there, man. Dang.
Yeah. There's the kid with the glasses.
Yeah, I just thought about that literally like yesterday in the sauna or somebody, where the heck was I talking? But somebody was talking about it. Oh no, it was at the barber shop talking, and somebody was talking about how in the final hole, wherever they were, they someone was like jamming their putter or something into the green,
What?
and the clubhouse saw it, and whatever the crew that I was talking to came up behind them and saw them, and they were trying to fix them. They were saying, yeah, like I think I know who it was. It was that guy or whatever. And it made me think about like the me innocently just walking in my new cleats. Hey, you guys know who got these cleats? Leaving holes on the practice green.
That's funny, dude. Yeah, no, that's good. The last thing I'll kind of say about that is what actually made me aware of this was living with Bria, or like getting when her and I first started like really getting close when we were dating.
Hmm.
Um, I just started noticing that we like process things differently. And at first I was like, oh, she is primarily auditory, meaning she has good hearing like capabilities, and I'm primarily visual. And that's how I like thought about things for a while because I focus on things like visually. But then after like watching us in stressful situations and crowds or whatever it is, I realize it's actually the exact opposite. The thing that I'm trying harder to focus on is the thing that doesn't come to me naturally.
Ah,
So I'm actually more auditory and it's harder for me visual, and she's the opposite. Like she's very visual, and if she can't figure it out visually, then she engages like her hearing. Whereas I will naturally do hearing like before anything else. Like if I hear something and she'll be like, "What is that?" And looking around, I'm like, "Shh, shh, shh," because I need to listen, and she's like trying to search for it.
mm, yeah, dude, you'd be tripped out. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. I can't remember what they call them. There's these sounds you can listen to on YouTube, and somehow these people have figured out a way to make it sound like someone's knocking on your door if you have headphones on.
Oh, really?
It is so spooky. It was like
That's wild.
3 a.m. one time at Revu's. I was laying in bed watching TikToks with these headphones on, and all of a sudden, this video had this special kind of like 4D audio or whatever it was, and it literally sounded like it was raining, and all of a sudden there was guys outside shouting like breaking into a car, and
Bro.
I was like, oh my god, what's going on? And I realized it was the video. Like that's how well it was. I was like, yo, this could get freaky in the
Bro, ain't
coming
no way.
years.
Ain't no way. No, that's funny. That would be trippy.
You don't have headphones, do you? That you could throw on?
I have earbuds.
Dude, we should listen to one together.
Okay, let me grab some.
Okay.
They was in my truck.
No problem. I'm trying to find a good one. Oh, I've heard about this one, I think. Okay, this one's kind of weird. I can't find a good example right now, man. Dang.
Okay. Can you hear me still?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay. I heard what you were saying, but I just got my headphones connected.
I don't know if you want to try this one. It's kind of creepy. It's called the most
Uh,
realistic 8D barbershop haircut on the internet.
8D barber hair. Why is it creepy? It's just a haircut. Yeah, because they cut off your head.
Yeah, I don't know. Here, I'll send you this link. Why is it not easy to find the chat? Um,
All right.
there we go. And we'll hit play at the same time. While you get that loaded, I'm going to take a quick pee.
Jesse Ronald Fitzsimmons on a brief break. All right, are you ready?
Did you try it at all yet?
No, you told me to wait.
Okay. You want to do the countdown? Like when you say one, two, three, play is when we'll click it.
Okay, I'm gonna count down though, because you said count down, not count up.
Okay.
Three, two, one, play.
I almost feel it.
Yeah. I'm so glad my barber never talks to me like this. I'll brush the hairs off in just a moment.
I don't think he's cutting yet. It's just waving it around. I guess he did. I don't know.
Go shorter. All right, that was enough creepy ASMR for me.
Enough what?
Creepy ASMR for
Oh,
me.
yeah. I'm gonna cut your hair now. Oh man.
Dang. I didn't hear what you said right there because I was taking out my headphones.
Oh, I said, I'm gonna cut your hair now.
Dude, I literally cannot imagine my barber. I have an appointment tomorrow, and if my girl Nicole goes up to me and she's like, "Don't worry, I'll brush it off in just a moment," I'm like, "Give me a new barber. I'm
You
out of
should wear headphones and be like, I'm just gonna listen to this
here."
barbershop ASMR while I'm here.
Dude, that's the world. That's the world we're going to.
Oh man.
I want to see it. Wally coming to existence. Um, do you want to talk about that spirit of death thing, or do you want to save it, or what? The death game. Everyone's trying the try not to die game.
Let me bloody check something. My buddy's coming down my way. Looks like he's still at the place. Yeah, let's chat for another like 15 or so.
Okay. Um, Something I want to talk about in the at some point is the like idea of a father in the household and how society is pushing men out, like in a way. I think it's a rubber band effect where many voices that have been unheard for quite some time have found a voice, and in the spirit of like making the most of that, they have like flipped the table where it's like, well, now you're going to be the ones not listened to, um, which I think is detrimental to a society when you like push down any voices,
Yeah.
but particularly when it's like most men in a society. Like that's not a strong society typically. And I think that's where we're at. So I would just love to, I don't know if you've like dabbled into that subject at all or think about that, but if not, maybe in a week or two we can like chat about that.
Yeah, I've definitely listened to a show or like a episode on YouTube from that Dr. K guy. I don't know if you're done with your YouTube purge yet. Um,
Yeah, yeah, I actually will probably throw him on today because I got some yard work, so I'll listen while I'm working.
yeah, I was gonna say if there's ever like something in the like online or a podcast or something that you see that you think would be like beneficial for us to have both listened to leading into our next
Hmm.
conversation, that would be awesome, I think. Yeah, I don't know if this is the best introduction to Dr. K for you, but I would say if you want to bookmark this, that might be a good introduction. It's a very recent 1 month ago from him. He was on a
Oh,
podcast.
okay.
There's a crisis going on with men. We've produced millions of lonely, addicted males.
Yeah, well, and that's literally exactly what I think about. Like you think about males, and it's just like I have listened ad nauseum to how men, and particularly white men, are like extraordinarily privileged. And I can understand where those arguments come from in a historical context, particularly. And at the same time, I look around me and the facts say that middle-aged men to older men are the loneliest people in this country in particular, in the Western world, particularly in the United States, are the loneliest population that there are. And like most at risk without like other severe like mental health disorders or something like that, addiction, a middle-aged man is going to be like most likely to commit suicide and complete it. Um, and that is like working its way down into like younger and younger males in particular. And I think another way we see that being expressed is in different ways our society is showing it acceptable, right? You can't be a white male and be listened to and you're already lonely, but hey, if you switch your genders and dress up as a woman, well, now we'll listen to you. Now you're important again. And so I think that just like they all kind of feed into themselves in like a way, you know, these like,
Yeah. Okay. Then what if we do this instead then? I sent you that. You send me something. I'll make sure I take an hour. This is an hour and a half.
I just record an hour long video of me talking and send it to you.
Hey, you send me whatever you need to send. But I think that actually it'll be interesting to pause on the talking of the don't die subject that that
Mhm,
guy was talking about. And then as it how it like ties into literally what you just said about like men,
mhm,
like how we went from a society of like don't die from like physical things that we don't want to die from, like putting on your seatbelt or more, ancestral, like don't, get mauled by a tiger
sure.
to now like we're fearing that we're just going to end our own life. So yeah,
Yeah.
let's
And
let's
almost
let's
even have
dive
like a
into that.
spirit, like a personal identity death in like, or a societal death because like I'm no longer welcome in the society.
Yeah. I feel like I'm consuming a lot of the same content. So if you have something that you come across that is maybe like a little bit outside of what I've found, send it to me and then
Yeah.
we'll come in it with our different perspectives.
Okay. Okay.
I love it, man. Well, it's been an absolute thrill talking to you again this week.
Bloody pleasure.
Absolute thrill.
Um, just personal updates real quick.
Yeah, here, I'll just end the old